Have you ever been so sure of yourself in a situation, so certain that you were right, that you only later realized that your confidence had blinded you? Maybe it was during a meeting when you spoke with conviction about a fact you thought you remembered, only to find out later it was wrong. Or maybe it was in a personal relationship, where you stood your ground so firmly that you didn't notice you were pushing someone away. We often talk about the benefits of confidence, how it can help us seize opportunities, speak up, and take action. But there's a side to confidence we rarely discuss. And that's the paradox. The same self-assurance that empowers us can also limit us, distort our perception, and sometimes even lead us straight into mistakes. This video is about understanding that paradox so you can keep confidence as a strength without letting it quietly turn into a weakness. Let's start by clarifying something. Self-respect and confidence are not the same, but they are closely connected. Self-respect is the foundation. It's the sense that you have inherent value and dignity, no matter the circumstances. Confidence is more situational. It's your belief in your ability to handle specific challenges. You can have high self-respect, but low confidence in a skill you haven't mastered yet, or high confidence without much self-respect, which can sometimes slide into arrogance. The problem begins when we mistake confidence for truth. Confidence is a feeling, not a fact. Just because you feel certain doesn't mean you are correct. Psychologists call this the confidence accuracy gap. Research has shown that people can be absolutely convinced they remember something clearly and still be completely wrong. Our brains love certainty. It feels safe and satisfying. But certainty is not the same as accuracy, and mistaking the two can close you off from learning. Imagine you're climbing a mountain trail and your confidence is like a flashlight. If you point it too narrowly on the path you think is right, you might miss a side trail that leads somewhere better. Confidence helps you keep walking, but overconfidence can blind you to the landscape. One of the most subtle dangers of excessive confidence is that it can reduce curiosity. When you're certain, you stop questioning. When you stop questioning, you stop learning. And when you stop learning, you risk getting stuck in outdated beliefs and habits. That's why the healthiest kind of confidence is dynamic. It leaves room for doubt. This is where the concept of intellectual humility comes in. Intellectual humility is the ability to recognize that your knowledge and perspective are limited, no matter how experienced or skilled you are. It's not about doubting yourself to the point of paralysis. It's about keeping a mental door open to new information. Think of it like holding your beliefs in your hands rather than clenching them in a fist. You can keep a firm grip, but you can also adjust if something new comes along. Let's look at why the paradox of self-respect and confidence exists. Self-respect gives you a baseline of stability. You know you're worth something regardless of the outcome. Confidence builds on top of that, letting you take risks and act decisively. But here's the trap. If your sense of worth becomes tied too strongly to always being right, then confidence stops serving you and starts protecting your ego instead. Instead of using it to explore and grow, you use it as armor against discomfort. The irony is that this makes you less secure in the long run. So how do you keep confidence healthy? The first step is awareness. Notice when your certainty is leading you to dismiss other perspectives without genuinely considering them. A quick mental check-in can help. Ask yourself, if I'm wrong about this, how would I know? This question forces you to look for disconfirming evidence, not just proof that you're right. Another tool is something I call the confidence dial. Imagine your confidence as a volume knob. High confidence is great when you need to act fast, say in an emergency or when giving a presentation. But in situations that require listening, collaboration, or complex problem solving, you might want to turn the dial down just enough to leave space for input and reflection. Being able to adjust your confidence level to fit the situation is a hallmark of adaptive thinking. There's also a mental habit that can keep overconfidence in check, separating self-worth from correctness. If your identity is too wrapped up in being right, then being wrong feels like a threat. But if you define yourself instead by your ability to learn, then being wrong becomes just another step forward. You're not proving your value through accuracy, you're proving it through growth. Let's explore a practical exercise you can try this week. Pick an area of your life where you feel highly confident. It could be your job, a hobby, or even your understanding of a certain topic. Now, actively seek out one credible source that disagrees with your approach or viewpoint. Read or listen to it with the sole purpose of understanding, not debating. Notice how it feels. If it's uncomfortable, that's a good sign. It means your brain is stretching beyond its comfort zone. Over time, this practice not only refines your knowledge, but also deepens your confidence because it's grounded in reality rather than assumption. It's also important to be mindful of confidence contagion. People naturally mirror the emotions and behaviors of those around them. If you walk into a room radiating certainty, others may adopt your stance without questioning it, not because you're necessarily right, but because your confidence feels convincing. This can be dangerous if you're wrong, especially in leadership roles. The responsible move is to signal when your confidence is high, but your certainty is not absolute. Phrases like, "I'm leaning toward this view, but I'm open to other ideas," maintain your leadership presence while inviting healthy discussion. Another layer of the paradox is how cultural and personal backgrounds shape our view of confidence. In some environments, showing uncertainty is seen as weakness, while in others, it's a sign of wisdom. If you grew up in a culture or family where mistakes were punished, you might cling to confidence as a protective shield. Understanding your own relationship with confidence and where it comes from can help you see when it's guiding you and when it's guarding you unnecessarily. Confidence also interacts with emotional regulation. When we feel anxious or insecure, projecting confidence can temporarily soothe those feelings. But if that confidence is hollow, the underlying anxiety doesn't go away. It just hides until it bursts out under pressure. That's why sustainable confidence comes from two sources: competence and resilience. Competence gives you the skills. Resilience gives you the ability to adapt when those skills aren't enough. And resilience grows best when you're willing to admit gaps in your knowledge without feeling like it threatens your worth. In practice, building this kind of confidence means alternating between doing and reflecting. You act, you evaluate, you adjust. You celebrate successes without inflating them into proof that you're invincible, and you acknowledge failures without letting them define you. Over time, this creates a steady internal anchor. You trust yourself not because you're always right, but because you can handle being wrong. This is the mindset that transforms the paradox of self-respect and confidence into a powerful synergy. It lets you walk into any situation with your head high and your mind open. In the next part, we'll dive into more advanced techniques for balancing confidence with humility. Explore real-world scenarios where overconfidence derails even the most capable people, and give you a step-by-step framework for keeping your self-respect intact while letting your confidence remain a tool, not a trap. One of the most practical ways to balance confidence with humility is to adopt what I call provisional certainty. This means you act with the confidence necessary to move forward, but you hold your conclusions as temporary, subject to change if better evidence comes along. It's like navigating with a GPS. You trust it enough to drive, but you're willing to recalculate if the road ahead is blocked. Provisional certainty allows you to maintain momentum without becoming rigid. Another powerful tool is the 3 perspective check. Before making a confident decision, step back and ask yourself, how would I see this situation if I were an outsider with no emotional stake? How would someone who completely disagrees with me see it? And how might I see it a year from now after the outcome has played out? These 3 lenses often reveal blind spots your confidence may be hiding. Let's also talk about micro-reality checks. Big moments of overconfidence can be avoided if you build a habit of small, frequent truth tests. This could be as simple as saying, "Here's what I think, but I want to hear one strong counterpoint before we decide." By making it part of your process to invite challenge, you train your brain to expect and value feedback rather than resist it. In leadership or team settings, modeling this behavior can shift the entire group culture toward more balanced confidence. It's also worth addressing a common fear. Many people believe that showing uncertainty will make others lose trust in them. But research shows the opposite can be true. When you demonstrate a willingness to adjust your stance based on evidence, people often perceive you as more trustworthy, not less. Why? Because it signals that your confidence is anchored in reality, not in protecting your ego. Think about the people you admire most. Chances are they're not the ones who are never wrong, but the ones who handle being wrong with grace and adaptability. Here's a thought experiment to make this practical. Imagine 2 pilots. One never questions their course and insists they're always correct, even when turbulence hits. The other checks their instruments regularly, asks for updates from co-pilots, and adjusts based on conditions. Which one do you want flying your plane? Confidence isn't about locking in a direction. It's about trusting your ability to navigate, even if that means changing course. Another dimension to explore is self-compassion. When you're compassionate toward yourself, you don't need to cling to overconfidence to protect your sense of worth. You can admit a mistake without it feeling like a personal failure. Self-compassion is the cushion that makes it safe to land after a fall. Without it, the fear of falling pushes you to overinflate your confidence, which ironically increases the chance of a harder crash. Practicing self-compassion can be as straightforward as replacing self-criticism with curiosity. Instead of, "I can't believe I messed that up," try, "That didn't work out. What's the most useful thing I can learn from it?" The shift in language changes the entire emotional tone and keeps your confidence healthy. Now, let's look at situations where high confidence can be a hidden liability. In negotiation, for example, being too confident in your position can make you ignore subtle cues from the other party that could lead to a better deal. In creative work, overconfidence in your current idea can keep you from exploring alternatives that might be more original or impactful. In personal relationships, confidence in your own intentions can blind you to how your actions are actually perceived. Each of these scenarios benefits from building in pause points, moments where you consciously stop, reassess, and invite other perspectives. This habit might feel unnatural at first, especially if you're used to moving fast, but over time it becomes second nature. It's also crucial to recognize when your confidence is being fueled by adrenaline rather than grounded in preparation or evidence. In high-stakes moments, your body's stress response can make you feel sharper and more certain, even if your actual accuracy hasn't improved. This is why elite performers in sports, medicine, or the military train under simulated stress, to learn how to separate the feeling of confidence from the reality of readiness. You can apply this principle in everyday life by rehearsing important conversations or decisions in conditions that mimic pressure. This gives you a clearer sense of whether your confidence is justified or just the product of a physiological rush. Ultimately, the goal isn't to weaken your confidence. It's to strengthen it by rooting it in truth rather than assumption. When your confidence is balanced with humility, it becomes resilient. It can withstand challenge, adapt to new information, and grow over time. You're not walking on a tightrope between arrogance and self-doubt. You're walking on a wide, stable bridge built from both competence and openness. You can step firmly because you know the bridge can flex without breaking. And here's the most empowering part. You don't need to choose between self-respect and humility. In fact, the two reinforce each other. When you have deep self-respect, you can afford to admit you don't know everything, because your worth isn't on the line. And when you have humility, your confidence becomes more trustworthy, both to yourself and to others. You stop needing to win every argument or prove yourself in every room, because your value isn't conditional on being right. This is the paradox resolved. The more your confidence allows for doubt, the stronger and more credible it becomes. So the next time you feel absolutely certain, pause for just a moment. Ask yourself, what might I be missing? Not to undermine yourself, but to expand yourself. That tiny gap you open in your certainty might be the very space where growth, connection, and better decisions can emerge. And if you want to keep building a mind that's both confident and wise, able to lead, adapt, and stay open, then keep learning with us. Like this video if it challenged your thinking, share it with someone who could use a more balanced view of confidence, and subscribe to Mind Unlocked for more tools to strengthen not just what you think, but how you think. Because your mind is your most powerful asset, and the more you know how to work with it, the more it works for you.